such as the energies of contemplation, nature in these not being indigent. But that some pleasures are delectable of themselves, and others only on account of the indigence which they remove, is indicated by this, that men are not pleased with the same delectable thing when the indigence of nature is removed, and when it is not. For in the former case they are delighted with things simply and absolutely pleasant, but in the latter with their contraries. For they are then delighted with things sharp and bitter, none of which are either naturally or absolutely delectable, so that neither are they pleasures. For as things delectable are to each other, so likewise are the pleasures produced by these. Farther still, it is not necessary that something else should be better than pleasure, as some say the end of generation is better than generation. For pleasures are not generations, nor are all of them accompanied with generation, but they are energies, and an end. Nor do pleasures happen when things are passing into existence, but from the use of things. Nor is the end of all pleasures something different from them, but of those only, which lead to the perfection of nature. Hence it is not well said that pleasure is a sensible generation, but it must rather be said that it is the energy of habit according to nature. And instead of saying that it is a sensible, it must be said that it is an unimpeded generation. It appears, however, to be a certain generation, because it is properly good. For they fancied that energy is generation, but it is different from it. To say also that pleasures are bad, because some delectable things produce diseases, is what may likewise be said of things salubrious. For some of these are bad, as to pecuniary affairs. In this respect, therefore, both will be bad, and yet they are not on this account bad. For contemplation is likewise sometimes injurious to health. Yet the pleasure proceeding from each habit is neither an impediment to prudence, nor to any habit. But the pleasures which are an impediment to these are such as are foreign. Since the pleasures arising from contemplation and discipline produce in a greater degree contemplation and learning. But it reasonably happens that no pleasure is the work of art, since neither is there an art of any other energy, but of power, though the arts pertaining to unguents and cooking appear to be the arts of pleasure. With respect to the assertions also, that the temperate man avoids pleasures, and that the prudent man pursues a life unattended with pain, and that children and brutes pursue pleasure, all these are solved after the same manner. For since we have shown how all pleasures are, in a certain respect, simply good, and how they are not good, hence children and brutes pursue such pleasures as are accompanied with desire, and pain, and are corporeal, and the prudent man pursues a freedom of pain from these. For of such a kind are these pleasures, viz. They are accompanied with pain. Children and brutes, also, pursue the excesses of these according to which the intemperate man becomes intemperate. Hence the temperate man avoids these. Since there are also pleasures which belong to the temperate man. CHAPTER 13. It is also admitted that pain is an evil, and is to be avoided. For one kind of pain, indeed, is simply evil, but another in a certain respect, because it is an impediment. That, however, which is contrary to what is to be avoided, so far as it is something to be avoided and is evil, is good. Pleasure, therefore, is necessarily something good. For the solution of Speusippus is not appropriate, viz. That pleasure is contrary to pain, just as the greater is contrary to the less, and the equal, since no one will say that pleasure is a certain evil. But nothing prevents a certain pleasure from being the best of things, if certain pleasures are bad, just as a certain science, viz. Wisdom, is the best of sciences, though some sciences are bad. Perhaps too, it must necessarily be the case, that if of every habit there are unimpeded energies, whether felicity is the energy of all habits, or of some one of them, this energy, if it is unimpeded, is most eligible. But this is pleasure, so that a certain pleasure will be the best of things, many pleasures, if it should so happen, being simply bad. And on this account all men are of opinion that a happy is a delectable life, and they reasonably connect pleasure with felicity. For no energy is perfect when it is impeded, but felicity is among the number of perfect energies. Hence, the happy man requires the goods pertaining to the body, and external possessions, and also good fortune, lest the want of these should be an impediment to his felicity. Those, however, who say that a man, if he is a good man, may be happy, though he should be tormented in a wheel, and fall into the greatest calamities, say nothing to the purpose, whether they assert this willingly or unwillingly. Because, however, the happy man requires good fortune, prosperity appears to some persons to be the same with felicity, though it is not the same, since prosperity, when it is excessive, is an impediment to felicity. Perhaps, likewise, it is no longer just to call prosperity, when it is excessive, good fortune. For the definition of prosperity has a reference to felicity. That all brutes too, and all men, pursue pleasure, is an indication that pleasure is in a certain respect the best of things. That fame which crowds of humankind extol will ne'er completely perish. Because, however, neither the same nature, nor the same habit, either is, or appears to be the best, neither do all men pursue the same pleasure, though pleasure is pursued by all men. Perhaps also they pursue not the pleasure which they fancy, nor that which they say they pursue, but the same pleasure, for all things naturally possess something divine. Corporeal pleasures, however, obtain the inheritance of the name, because men are for the most part occupied in them, and all animals partake of them. Because therefore these pleasures alone are generally known, these are the only pleasures which are fancied to have an existence. It is, however, evident that unless pleasure is good, and also energy, it will not be possible for the happy man to live delectably. For on what account would delight be requisite to a happy life, if it is not good? But it would also be possible for life to be happy, though attended with pain. For pain will neither be evil nor good, if pleasure is not good. Why therefore is pain to be avoided? Neither therefore will the life of the worthy man be more delectable, unless his energies are more delectable. CHAPTER 14. With respect, however, to corporeal pleasures, we must direct our attention to the assertions of those who say that some pleasures are very eligible, viz. Such as are worthy, but not corporeal pleasures, with which the intemperate man is conversant. Why, therefore, are the pains contrary to these pleasures depraved? For good is contrary to evil. Or shall we say, that necessary pleasures are so far good, because that which is not evil is good, or that they are good to a certain extent? For in those habits and motions in which there is no excess of that which is better, there is no excess of pleasure. But in those in which there is an excess of what is better, there is also an excess of pleasure. But of corporeal goods there is an excess, and the bad man becomes bad by pursuing the excess of pleasure, and not necessary pleasures. For all depraved men are delighted with meats and wine, and venery, but not in such a manner as is proper, and they are affected in a contrary way with respect to pain. For they do not avoid the excess of pain, but pain altogether. For pain is not contrary to excess, but to him who pursues excess. Since, however, it is not only necessary to speak the truth, but also to assign the cause of a false assertion, for this contributes to credibility. Since when the cause why a thing seems to be true, though it is not, appears to be reasonable, it then gives greater credibility to the truth. This being the case, it must be shown why corporeal pleasures appear to be more eligible. In the first place, therefore, they appear to be so because they expel pain, and because excessive, and in short, corporeal pleasure is pursued on account of the excesses of pain, as a remedy. But the remedies are vehement, and on this account corporeal pleasures are pursued, because they become more apparent when placed by that which is contrary to them. Pleasure, therefore, does not appear to be good, for these two reasons. as we.